Welcome to the Love, Law, and Life Makeover Podcast, a go-to for hope, faith, and joy in changing your life. I'm Neil Presley Cox, lawyer, speaker, and author of Hope Lines. I have an easy-to-find website, neilpresleycox.com. You can't miss it. And a nice welcome for my presenter and co-host, Kelsy Gibbs.
And
This might be a good conversation now recorded.
it might.
Yeah.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah, no, we were talking about relationships and speed dating, and my idea is to have speed life coaching because it's like dating or picking a counselor, picking a lawyer, and picking a life coach. There's chemistry, there's hit and miss. There's some people that aren't as good as others. There's some people that maybe one person needs to learn from another certain kind of a person as opposed to another one, even though the first one is really great at teaching and really could offer a lot, but that just isn't the right fit or isn't what that person needed to hear at that time. So speed life coaching.
Let's get it going, guys. Let's do it. Okay. So I'm here today with Neil Presley Cox, and we're going to talk about this book, Hope Lines. He is the author, he is a speaker, he is an attorney, husband, and father, and grandfather now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, right now we are on the Visitations blocker chapter. So this was a really heart-wrenching story. And I forgot about the microphone. I hope it's picking all this up.
Why don't we just
Pull
put
it.
the computer closer?
That's better. We're gonna nail this. We're gonna end up getting
course.
this done a lot better. First try sometimes, eventually.
I'm-
So
None of this is stressing me at all, by the way. I'm
Oh,
just
good.
happy to be doing it, so don't worry about it.
thanks, Neil. I'm working on my perfection issues. Okay, guys. All right. So visitation blockers, this heart-wrenching story. Neil, do you want to give us like a quick recap of like kind of set the stage of what's happening here?
Yeah, visitation blockers is very close to my heart because after 30 years of lawyering, you start to see patterns in people's behavior. And one of the things I see, and it just breaks my heart, is that, the courts want to protect people, usually women. They want to protect women and children from bad people. There is a certain percentage of people, usually men, who are going to behave badly, are going to behave violently, are going to do things that hurt their child, but that's a very small percentage. The courts are very focused on protecting people from abusers, as they should be. So in the context of visitation blockers, what this story is about a man who isn't one of those mean, abusive people, and that's the tragedy of it. He's a nice man, but he's being falsely accused of being somebody that is a threat to his child. And so all he wants to do is see his children. And he's encountering one hurdle after another that his ex-wife is putting on his ability to spend time without restraints with his children. And it's just breaking his heart. He's just so frustrated. He hasn't done anything wrong. And so he is just beside himself with grief over wanting to see his children and frustration over having all these hurdles and financial blocks and other kinds of things put in front of him. And it's just, he continues to do the right thing, but it just seems to never end. And judges are humans, just like the rest of us. And so some judges are better than others. And he encounters a judge that is very politically aware of having made a bad mistake, or another judge made a bad mistake and somebody did hurt a child. So that the judge he goes in front of, being aware of that situation and not wanting to incur the public's wrath, put some limitations on him, not because the facts tend to really show that, but because he's, quote, erring on the side of caution. The mom says she's worried about this man. And so he errs on the side of caution, the judge does. and tells this man that he don't get to see his children unless he goes and pays a big chunk of money every hour to what's called a supervised visitation professional. And so it's just one step after another. He's being asked to do all these things before he even gets to do the normal things that a father would get to do.
Wow. I didn't really tap into much earlier about like humanizing the judge as much, but you're right. Like their experiences in prior cases are gonna affect their ruling, right? And their perceived notions of people, and wanting, overcorrecting their past mistakes. So yeah, just even being aware of that when you go into the courts, right, to present your case. It's like you've said in other areas. Do you think that like this father could have presented like to the courts like how he is a good father and how limiting the visitations could negatively affect the children? Or would this be would he even have the opportunity to share that?
Yes, he would get the opportunity, and I think in the story he did get the opportunity, and he did present that. But the judge says essentially, I'm not telling you you don't get to see your children. We just are going to have a period of time of making sure that everything's going the way it should, and that you're going to do the right things. And so we're going to have just an extra set of eyes on you, and we're going to start off with the supervised visitation, which means that he has to spend a fortune and have people essentially be around his children with eyes on him in a fishbowl, as opposed to, the normal things of taking your kid to the playground and having your weekend with the kids or your days with the kid. You're doing this in this professional office. It's completely antiseptic and not real and uncomfortable. And for somebody that hasn't done anything wrong, there's that added frustration of, geez, I'm innocent and I'm being held to a standard as though I have done something wrong. So the frustration inside of a human like that is just, I can't imagine how much this man is seething. And the thing is that I have seen these scenarios played out countless times where the courts put these kinds of limits after an individual says, we think this parent is dangerous, is unhealthy, even without a really good firm factual basis. Some judges will start very slowly with allowing the non-primary parent or non-custodial parent to even have visitation just upon the allegation, because they want to have a track record of making sure everything's fine and nothing happens, which to me switches the whole standard around. You don't have to prove yourself innocent, and you shouldn't have to prove yourself to be a good father if you've not done anything wrong, or mother. The starting point should be that, okay, two good parents, there's no track record of domestic violence. We're not going to assume just because somebody says something that's not supported by good corroborating evidence like photographs or police reports or anything. It's just one person said something and there's no backing evidence. We're not going to just run with that and all of a sudden reduce somebody's parental rights and parental time. But that's what happens all too often. It's a very frequent theme in our courts. And the sad part of it is that it's driving a lot of fathers away. They're already depressed, sad. They just got divorced. Their relationship's over. It's hard. The financial troubles. Life is hard. And so all those things. And then to add to that is that they're being accused of something or being told that they're bad. And the judge is accepting that without real factual evidence. And then telling these individuals they can't see their children. And so some men, they give up, it's this is impossible. I can't do this. And so they stop even trying to see their children, and they stop following the court order on visitation and going to get evaluations or pay for the supervisor or whatever is being asked of them. And so the upshot of that is that you've got thousands more children now without a father.
So in this, how how can you have hope within a broken system in this scenario?
Well, I don't think it's realistic to place your hope in the system. I mean, it's kind of like sitting back and thinking, well, hopefully the judge will come to his or her senses. That's not the kind of hope or program that I think is realistic or really offers somebody inspiration, which they need. I think it's more a matter of, as unfortunate as it is, you do everything within your power, and then you focus on yourself and on acceptance, because there are some things in my life that I wish were different, but they're not going to change. For example, I wish, because I love basketball, I wish I was 6 foot tall or 6'2", but I'm 5'9.5", and I can wish to be taller so that I would be more effective against 6'4" players. All I want, I have to accept the fact that this is what I am and work within that. And so if you've got a judge that is making those kinds of rulings, that's something you have to accept, that judge is making those rulings. And so if you accept it, you're more likely to have perseverance and to actually do the things the judge is suggesting and try to get to the other side. Whereas if you don't have acceptance and you're just seething constantly, you're more likely to make bad decisions in life, such as substance abuse or reacting angrily or giving up, and you're more likely to not follow the court orders so that you can get to the other side. So acceptance and focusing on yourself, looking for gratitude in the things that you do have in life. We're all dealt a measure of things, and some of them are hard and challenging and even sad. Some of them are beautiful and great. And so look for the things in your life that are beautiful and focus on those and have gratitude for those. And so that way you can grow as a person. And the part of you that is angry and seething and frustrated and hopeless and giving up and wanting to be intoxicated can recede, and the better things can rise up.
Yeah, because even in your book, you talk about how, at least in this particular case, like he was waiting to hear back about the visitation rights and whether or not he could start seeing his kids. It's been a month, and he went to see a psychologist, had to get evaluated, and they said because of his frustration levels, they went ahead and said, unfortunately, the recommendation is that supervised visitation continue. Now, had he been more like working on himself, like you had said, right? Like working on that, he might have had a better like psych evaluation, which could have shortened the process. Is that?
I hadn't thought of that, but I think that's absolutely right. I think you're right. He probably would have had a better psych evaluation. However, I find it also ironic and incredible that somebody who hadn't done anything wrong would be have limits placed on them on their right to be a parent. And then when they say something about that or express some frustration about that, they're told that they have an anger problem or that there's not something right with them. So while I agree with you that had he worked on himself, he probably would have done better in the psychological evaluation. I also think that our family court system oftentimes singles out and punishes men based upon unfounded, unproven, non-evidentiary allegations made by somebody that wants to control a situation.
Well, and if you don't mind me interjecting real quick, hang on a second. What are the courts actually looking for? Because just like you said, any normal parent would be livid at the fact that like this man hasn't seen his kids in a month. So any normal person would be like annoyed with that. They wouldn't want that. That would be very frustrating, right? So, and all the emotional stuff. So if you come in calm, cool, and collected, wouldn't you look like you almost didn't care? So what are what in your professional opinion, or I don't know, however you want to do this, like what would you say is the correct course as far as dealing with your emotions? Because if you look too cool, you don't care about your kids that are ripped from your life after having a family for X amount of years.
I don't think it's a question of how you're appearing emotionally, although quite clearly you don't want to come across as angry or disrespectful to the court. Those are common sense factors. But I don't think it's a question of how you are coming across emotionally. I think it's more a question of, well, the first interest, take a step back. You've got to have an attorney in a situation like that where you're being accused or there's an allegation that you could hurt your child. You've got to have an attorney that can present a coherent argument to the court that this is unfounded. And that there's a lot of things as a lawyer I look at and say, like I said, do you have a police report? Do you have pictures of bruises? Are there other people besides just the other party making these kinds of allegations? Are there prior mental health problems? If you don't have any of those kinds of things, then of course a judge ought not to put a limit on a person's constitutional right to parent, but they still do because they want to err on the side of caution. And we all think about our own self-interest. And so no judge wants to be the judge that allowed something where there was an allegation made and then something happens later. So that's the judge being political, and like it or not, that is just human nature and you can't get away from that. So those kinds of things are going to happen where the judge is going to put those constraints on, even where the evidence realistically doesn't support it, and where you're in effect punishing a person despite the fact they haven't done anything wrong. And so calmly navigating that with good advice from an attorney so that you can get to the other side of that. And maybe after the passage of time, the judge will say, well, this man did the psych eval and he went through the supervised visitation and everything was fine. And now we're giving him normal visitation. And so a person has a choice in that process to allow themselves to get more and more bitter and angry and then maybe make some wrong choices, or to navigate that even if it wasn't fair and get through it to the other side so you can see your child.
And what would you say are some things that he can, like in this situation, that he can do? Like you give some applicable advice on like different organizations he can look into and different action steps. What would those be?
Well, taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture is huge sometimes. And that was what I was alluding to before, is look at the good things in your life and the people that you do have in your life and how can you help someone else. So I think it's just a huge principle in life that when you're dealt setbacks, that if you can step back and then think about a bigger picture and how you can use that situation to benefit others, maybe some people that are in the same position, I think that's huge. And I think that it can turn around your whole attitude about things. And so fathers' rights organizations can help, and using your experience to help others that are in a difficult spot can help, and that'll help the frustrated individual's attitude to turn. But it is difficult when you're being asked to do things and you're struggling financially already, and then you're asked to go pay a fortune to go to one of these supervised visitation centers.
Yeah, I mean I didn't even know that was a thing until I read this chapter. That sounds awful, because he talks about like he literally has to pay a fortune just to see his children. So it's contingent on his money, which that's just, yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, can you picture a man in a bar, pretty drunk, dressed nice, but you can just tell he's not doing well. He's talking to a couple other guys in the bar and he's cursing and he's saying, I'm being asked to spend $55 an hour just to see my kid. And then some expletives, and I can picture him. I can picture him cursing about it, and other people looking at him like, what kind of a situation is that?
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said of like getting involved in helping others experiencing the same problems, because then you're positioning yourself to be a part of a solution for other people as well. Just like even just participating in a support group and being a part of that
That's right.
is being a part of the solution.
That's right. And perseverance. There's power in not giving up when you're getting knocked down again and again, but you know that you're doing the right thing. There's power in continuing to get up even when it's unfair. There's power in that, and down the road you'll be so proud of yourself for having done the right thing in a hard situation. It's easy to do the right thing in a real smooth, easy situation where everyone's smiling at you.
I know, right? Well, and anyone who hasn't gotten a copy of this book, like he has at the end of every chapter, it's like he's got like a resource toolbox, different things you can go through, articles to look at, books to find, organizations that can be helpful. So definitely make sure you're checking this out if or if you know of someone else that's going through anything like this. Is there anything else that you would like to add or touch on?
Yeah, just if you're hurting, be gentle with yourself. Life is hard in 2023. It's stressful, and there's children involved, and you're doing the best you can. Be gentle with yourself. We all find ourselves in broken places at different times in our lives, and you're doing the best you can, and God bless you for it.
Thanks again, Neil.